Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? This is ESL Writing. Welcome to the class. I thank you for joining us this evening. Just want to go over a couple of things with you. I want to thank you for the submissions on your assignments last week. You guys did very good. There's a couple of people that still owe me assignments from last week. Please try not to fall back too far behind, because then it'll be pretty difficult to get back, you know, to get them done. What I wanted to emphasize is to please try to do it as quickly as possible and email them in. I've tried to make it a little bit easier using Word docs. You can answer both your book and your assignments on the same page. A couple of you have done it already, and it's been working out pretty well. All right, last week we did go over the parts of organization and the parts of the hamburger, which you might remember, in which we separated your topic centers, which would be the top of the bun, your condiments, and your meat would be the supporting sentences, and your bottom of the bun would be your conclusion. Now, in your assignments, we did go through over the several parts of the paragraph and how to get the details in, how many sentences you should write, and I just want to make sure that we are working through that space in where we are able to put those sentences, that topic sentence, the three supporting details, and your conclusion. Now, it doesn't mean that you might only have three details, you might have more, but just to start off, work with three. In this week's, what we're going to work on in class is concerning, now that you've got that part of writing the topic sentence and your three details, I want to go a little bit over the fundamentals of outlining, because when you're going to write something with more than one paragraph, you're going to have a lot of details. So your outlining will help you prepare for that writing of that essay. We've gone through the process of the paragraph, the meats and the bones and the condiments of the paragraph. Now we're going to take a step forward and go into the fundamentals of outlining, which will put you into writing paragraphs that'll be part of an essay. And I've taken this step by step, and even if you folks feel that it's not working for you, it is important that you hopefully come to a point where we want to get you writing in an essay format, and that's my whole purpose of this ESL writing. Because when you take the ISEL test or the TESOL test, you will see that writing in paragraphs is one of the key fundamentals and what they're looking for. So let's start off this evening with the fundamentals of outlining. With the fundamentals of outlining, we will see that, let's discuss first what's an outline. An outline is where you prepare of what you're going to write and the details of what you are going to write. You know, you have your main topic, you know your idea, you know what you're going to write about. Now, let's find a way where we can detail, and then from those details, you write the sentences, your supporting sentences with details in it, which will develop that paragraph. And let's take a look at this next slide, and here's a definition. An outline presents a picture of the main ideas and the supporting ideas of any subject. Some typical uses of outlining are a class reading, an assignment, an essay, a term paper, a book review, or even a speech. For any of these, an outline will show you a basic overview and important details. That's why it's important you do it before you start writing, because it will give you the ammunition to write or prepare that speech or prepare that essay or prepare that term paper which you're going to write. You take it step by step. And what we're going to show you this evening in this is how to do that. A student's first responsibility is to follow the requirements of the assignment, meaning follow what your professor wants you to do. Follow his details to the letter, because that's going to be half of the assignment. It's to follow instructions and to do the assignment that the professor gives you, because sometimes many students do not follow. They write something that's good, but they don't follow the instructions and they don't get as good as a grade as they should have. What follows illustrates the basics outlining. The library presents it as a quick reminder because students often ask about outlining, and the information is not easy to find quickly in various reference books, and this is important. Now you're starting doing a little bit of research, and you want to do some essays, and you have a term paper to do. You know how to develop your paragraph, but now how do I get all this information? Because now you have one paragraph that has 3 details. Then you have a second paragraph that's another 3 details. And then you have a third paragraph that's another 3 or 4 details. So now you have all this information. You need to get yourself organized. And that's what outlining does for you. Elements of an outline form. The main ideas take Roman numerals, meaning you can use this, you can use Roman numerals, you can use bullet points, whichever your main idea. In this case, they're suggesting Roman numerals only because academically, that's what's mainly used. And you will see the structure, which I'm going to show you now, when we get to the main idea. And when we're writing, this is your first paragraph, the main idea. It has a supporting detail to number 1. B is a supporting detail also to 1. But then within that supporting detail, you have a supporting detail to B, number 1 supporting detail to B, and number 2 supporting detail to B. And underneath that, you might have a supporting detail to number 2 and a supporting detail to number 2. What does that mean? That within that sentence that you're writing about a detail, you're adding additional information. Do you remember when we discussed about writing sentences last week, that sometimes you might have to add a little bit more detail to that sentence so it can be comprehensive, so you can give a full picture of what you're trying to say? And this is how you break it down. You know, if you got supporting detail A, supporting detail B, but then you have a subset, which is 1 and 2 for supporting detail B, and you have a subset A and B for supporting detail, sub-supporting detail number 2. And it looks like it's complicated, but when you start practicing this a little bit more, you will see that you will have that ability to write an outline pretty quickly if you have had done the research. And sometimes this will help you for the research, because when you're looking at it, you might find that there is something missing and you have to go back and find out. Now, you have a main idea, a second part of the main idea, and then this is one of the sentences that you might have within the main idea, which is number 2. For example, the horses run very fast. That's your main idea. And they're winning horses. They're always winning. They're winning large prizes. And those are the details that you have in there. But within that main idea, you have horses that run fast, and they are all thoroughbreds, which is part of that main idea. And you can take that and use it probably in a secondary paragraph and go into the purebred part of the horses that run fast. So This is something that you have to keep in mind. And even when you're doing a creative writing, when you're talking about something personal and you have a main idea, but within main idea you have something else that you want to include, but you don't want to put it all in the first paragraph. You want to make it that its own individual paragraph. That because that particular item is so important to what you want to say that you might have a second paragraph dedicated to that part of the main idea. Now remember, main idea 1 here and main idea 2 are the same thing. They come out of the first paragraph, but then you're supporting that main idea, and the way it says here, you have subsidiary or support of idea to number 2, which is this one, a supporting idea B to number 2, and supporting idea C to number 2. Again, they're not supporting the main idea in number 1, but they're supporting the main idea in number 2. It seems a little complicated, but that's why I give you these videos so you can go over them and over and over again, so you're able to, think about it, look up in your books for writing, and you will see a little bit more explanation. Plus, in the assignments that I gave you this week, it's going to go into this outline in a little bit more detail with your exercises that you have to do. It is up to you, writer, to decide how many main ideas and supporting ideas adequately describe the subject. However, if there's an I in the outline, there has to be, if there's a Roman numeral 1, there has to be a Roman numeral 2. If there's an A, there has to be a B. If there's a 1, there has to be a 2. So what specifically is this setting? If you put a number on a Roman numeral 1 for the main idea, that means you have a Roman numeral 2 as a part of the main idea, and subsequently with your sub-subjects on the lines. If there's an A, there has to be a B. If there's a 1, there has to be a 2. If it's only 1, then you put no number, no Roman numeral, no regular number, no alphabetical letter. You just write it by itself. Let's talk about an example here. You decide you are outlining a speech of AIDS, and some of the ideas you believe ought to be included: AZT, transmittal, AIDS babies, teenagers, safe sex, epidemic numbers, and research. You want to include all these details in what you want to write about on your speech on AIDS. Now you put these ideas into an outline. The first thing that you do is to decide the main encompassing idea. Which is your main idea? What is it that you're going to be focusing on in this case in a speech, or it could be an essay, or it could be a term paper. After you have determined what the main encompassing idea is, next you decide the rest of the important ideas and how they fit in as part of what you're trying to get across. And let's take a look at how that's done. Main aspects of AIDS. Now here is your subject. Here is your subject, the main aspects of AIDS. Now, your first main idea that you want to speak about is transmittal of AIDS and how it is transmitted. And you want to go into the part A, which is your transfusion. B is into your body fluids. And 1, which is a subpart of B, is sexual and non-sexual. And this is how you see simple words, 1 word, 2 words per each one will give you an idea. It starts a tree. It starts a trend of what you're going to speak. And from that is where you start developing your sentences. We'll go that a little bit later on. Now, the second part of the major aspects of AIDS, which is also part of what you want to get at as your main subject, is the societal consequences of AIDS. Roman numeral 1 is your transmittal of AIDS. Roman numeral 2 is your societal consequences of AIDS. And if you take a look carefully, where A is epidemic of the season, which is have sub details, teenagers, women, homosexuals. B is AIDS. C is increased homophobia. And D is overall burden of healthcare. Now you have an outline where you can speak about one of each of these things. You can develop it. You can develop your sentence. You can use your transitions. You can use your conjunctions. You can use what you've learned until this point to develop a cohesive, understandable, and clear and concise paragraph. And that's what we're going to. We're attempting to do in this class. Now, if you see here, he even has a third one, research solutions to AIDS. And now he presents how, the consequences, and the solutions. So now this what it looks this speech, he's going to present a complete picture of an outline of a research that he has done about the major aspects of AIDS. And here's your transmittal, the consequences, and the solutions. Here is a complete essay. Here is a complete speech. And it might fill in 4 or 5 pages, but in this first page, you as a writer know exactly what you're going to write. You have done your research, you put it together in that order, and it's going to make it much, much easier for you to accomplish. In this part, which I just showed you, and it's a little bit more, it is a little complex to the simple paragraphs that you've been writing, but I wanted to get you started and for you to understand this. Now, you might not have Roman numeral 1 or Roman numeral 2. You might just have one paragraph to write in the upcoming assignments that you have. But approach it that way. Do an outline. See what you think. And then you know what an outline is? To write 3 Roman numeral 1, or your first main point, or your only main point, and 3 lines with the details that you're writing, and your conclusion, where you put that all together. Writing an outline is going to make it a lot easier for you. If there's any questions on this, please make sure that you are able to go over it in detail. If you have any questions, part of the discussion that I have and part of the assignments has to do with outlining. So it's important that you keep that in mind. I hope that this part you have understood so far. I am going into showing you the next part, which is what I call summary, paraphrase, and quote. And you might say, what's that all about? Well, summary, paraphrase, and quote has to be specifically to what we call we have an idea, and in this last section that I showed you, we have a very complex topics. And within that topics, you have a lot of information. And you might, in this case, since it's someone else's work and someone else's research, you have 3 ways of doing it. And that's summarizing, paraphrasing, or quoting directly. And that's what the second half of the class today is going to cover. And it's very important for you to understand that this is used every single day in just about every research paper that you find. Even in creative writing, you will find that people summarizes other people's work and paraphrase it or even quote it. The reason why I'm giving you this today is, although you're doing creative writing, when you get to write about other subjects and you're doing a term paper, Not so much for test essays, but more for term papers and for essays that you have to write where you're required to do research. And in any case, if you're writing something personally and you know the quote from someone, let's say Martin Luther King or Che Guevara or anyone like this, you can quote them within what you're writing. That's perfectly okay. It's important, but it's important that you do state it within your writing, and that's what we're going to cover. Now, we have summary versus paraphrase and quotation versus paraphrase. And I can put it this way. If you take a look at these examples that they have here, the summary and the paraphrase, you see that the summary is a little bit shorter. The paraphrasing is taking and rewriting what the person has written with different words, different synonyms. The sentence structure is different, but you're paraphrasing what the other person is saying. When a paraphrase, the difference from a paraphrase and a quotation is that the quotation is direct copy of the text. So, if you're going to quote Martin Luther King, I had a dream, you put that in quotation marks. And at the bottom, you put your quotation, Martin Luther King, in his speech address in the Million Man March in Washington, D.C. If you paraphrase it, you're going to write a statement about that quotation. There has to be differences in syntax and dictation. It does not carry any quotation marks, but it uses a parenthesis citation. And we'll get that a little bit more clear on. But you remember, you have quotation marks and you have parenthesis citations. And sometimes you want to insert a name, something, and it covers another symbol, which we will cover a little bit later on. Now, what do you mean by all my facts are wrong? I copied everything straight from the internet. The question is, who cares? The answer is, everyone cares. The person that wrote it, your instructor that you're writing it to, the person that's reading it, and it should also care to you. Because there will become a time when you write something, it could be fiction, it could be nonfiction, it could be a research, it could be a book review, anything. But how would you like you spend your hours writing something and someone uses your exact words without giving you any credit? That's what the problem is. That's why it matters. That's why we should care about paraphrasing, quoting, and summarizing in the proper manner and doing it correctly. One of the biggest issues today in the university is plagiarism. Plagiarism is a big deal, especially with the internet, where you can get anything off there. You can get reports, you can get theses, you can get so many things off the internet. And if you copy and paste, that's no good. Unless you're quoting it and not making it your own, and you give credit to the writer. If you're paraphrasing it, you do the same thing. You put the proper symbols in, and you make sure that that person gets credit. And when you summarize it, even though you're using your own words and you're cutting it short, if you are specifically summarizing about something, a paper or a review, you know what we're speaking about. But if within a term paper that you're doing, you're summarizing, you make sure you give credit to that writer. Again, just think about it. You've worked, 3 to 4 months, night and day, trying to get a big paper together for your class so you can get an A, and someone copies it. That's when it's going to make you feel lousy. That's why it shouldn't be done. That's why the schools are so strict with it, because it doesn't help you. It actually hurts you when you do that. A summary. And a summary, we're not going to spend a lot of time in it because A summary is just it establishes the background and overview of what you've read. It describes the knowledge that you have about the topic. Like I said, you read it. Did you understand it? Are you able to express it in your own words? That's what a summary is. What you've read, what's the main idea, what is the supporting details, okay? And your conclusion, your summary, gives you, if it determines the main ideas. If what you've read actually accomplishes what it's written to do. And that's what a summary is. And now we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. I will have a different class on proper summarizing. You guys do it pretty good so far from what I've seen, but it's important that you understand that summary is a very huge and an important part of writing in the English language. Now, quotes. Quotes it's really important. And this is why we use quotes. You use quotes to support your argument in what you're writing. If you're using it to go against yours, it's no longer a quote, and I'll be more specific about that. Because then you're presenting an opposing view, and then you have to separate what your main idea is from the opposing view, and that's a separate paragraph altogether. You can say there is a separate point of view. This person said blah, 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 and you can quote them directly. But that cannot be part of your main idea. You do not present a positive and a negative all in one time. You can briefly mention in your main topic that there might be something that doesn't comply or that doesn't agree with you. For example, many people think that Trump is a great president, while others do not. Here is an opinion of yours and opinion of others. So that's okay. But when you start using quotations, you have to make sure that that is a separate paragraph, that what you're doing is you're able to separate things so it be clear, comprehensive, and concise. Now, you might want to use a quote for a specific argument. And the one I'm going to use, Dr. Martin Luther King again. I had a dream. And that is very, very specific, that it's used very common, and it is used probably millions of times to present a point of view, a specific argument of and the argument, if you know about the speech, I had a dream, and it's about the hope within the minority community, the African Americans, the Browns, that there would be equality. That is specifically speaking to that. So when you are speaking to that particular argument and you use that quote, it is being used properly. There are times that many people use quotes incorrectly, but you've got to make sure that it supports a specific argument. It points that out. And you have to be very important, because that's important to the writer, to make sure it's being used in a proper context. Now, there are times where you want to point out particularly powerful phrases. And I want to think about another powerful phrase is John F. Kennedy, when he speaks about that the government works for the people, not the people for the government. And that he made that very clearly. I didn't quote him just now, I paraphrased it. But when you quote something like that, you want to use it when it's powerful, when it makes an instance. You don't want to be going through a paragraph quoting here and quoting there without it being something powerful that makes an impact, because then it gets really confusing when you're trying to read it. And you also want to, sometimes you want to compare. You want to use a quote to compare a specific point of view. And that's important. A specific point of view. It could be yours, it could be someone else's, it could be the author's, but it has to be a specific point of view. So quotes, extremely useful, extremely important. Now they should not be used. You cannot have a paper, with 4 pages, and 35 quotes. They have to be powerful. They have to be important because then the reader gets tired. Okay, when is this person going to speak? All they're doing is using quotes, 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 quotes. Within an essay that you have to write, maybe 2 pages, I would say no more than 2 quotes. 2 quotes is adequate. More than that, professors will look at it as, I would like to see what the person is really thinking. Let them use their own words. Let them paraphrase what he's reading. Use your own words. Express yourself. Because that's what the professors are looking for. That you're writing, not anyone else's. Now, signal words, quoted text. Quoted text are signal words. And just look at it. I just said that you use your own words. And the reason why I put these 2 ladies there is I wanted to demonstrate that, sometimes we repeat and say things that others say, and you're actually quoting them. You're repeating what they say. You're quoting somebody else. And then that person might say it to someone else that you said this. That's third hand. But what I want to make an emphasis is, you can use single words for quoted text. You can use one word text. And you can use quoted text as signal words. And that's, important. Because sometimes you might read something in an article or a book that you're reading that has something quoted in it already. And that quote signals a specific idea. It enforces a specific topic. It supports something that you're saying and what the other writing is saying. And that takes a lot of practice to do. But just I wanted to let you know that is possible. You will find something that is written, something that has a quotation in it, that you might feel you might need to use it because it really presents your point of view. Yes, it is correct to do it. There are certain formats that we must use, whether using APA or MLA or Chicago. There are different ways of putting that into your written text. And that's why I'm saying you got to follow your professors, because you never know, what they want you, how they want you to write your paper. And I found this quote really, really interesting. The proper use of quotes. Man has made use of his intelligence. He invented stupidity. And this is a quote by Remy Gourmand. Proper use of quotes. Edits for grammar or clarification go into brackets. So, and this is what I was speaking to before. If you have something that someone wrote and you add on one word to it, you must go into brackets, and that's these what I call little staples from either side. These brackets you use if you want to insert in any quote that you're using. The one I have here has no edit brackets. Man has made use of his intelligence. He invented stupidity. How would you use this? Where would you use this? It's a little tough quote, but if you go into the subject, you can find a few different things which can be used in today's present time. Now, here is an example, one reported by BuzzFeed News, And it says BuzzFeed News reported the decision of victory for the administration. Here you use the brackets in to showcase was that it's not the from direct quotes, but it's an edit, and Trump. If you read it now, the decision was a victory for the Trump administration. Sounds a little bit more clear, but of course sometimes these lines written by communications will have that fact that you might need to insert words and edit what they're writing. The decision is a victory for the administration, according to an article by BuzzFeed. And that's what it was referring to. And if you take a look, the decision is a victory for the administration. The decision was a victory for the Trump administration. And you see how it's rewritten here? But when you are quoting, here you have the word is, because that's present tense when they're writing about it, and was, you're inserting that, you're inserting the past tense here because it's past. You're quoting from a book. That's why you would insert the edit. And if you guys need help on this, I can send you information on how to edit properly. Paraphrasing. Let's take a look at what these lovely ladies are doing. Hamlet, paraphrased by chickens. To be or not to be. That's the direct quote from Hamlet. To be or not to be. Let's look at the paraphrase that these chickens are using. Life sucks, but the alternate might suck more. Yeah, it is a little humor in there, but actually that paraphrase from to be or not to be is accurate and concise and clear. And that's what you're looking for when you're paraphrasing. You present the same exact idea that the original writer has presented, and you're paraphrasing it in your own words, that it both has the same meaning. That when you read after what you write, they both things have the original and the one you've written are exactly the same. And one thing that it does for other people, when you to be or not to be, if you ever read Hamlet, you will see that it can be confusing because Hamlet, the way he writes, as a play, it's very difficult to understand. But when you break it down, and this is why you want to paraphrase it, and you don't want to quote it on this case. You do not want to quote it. You want to paraphrase it. Why? Because it clarifies a short passage. It avoids you overusing quotations, which, as I explained to you before, it explains a point when exact wording isn't important. In this case, to be or not to be, many people can have many different variations. But to your point, what you want to explain, what you want to get across, the point of view that you want to develop from it is in your paraphrasing. It explains the main passage and its points. And it's sometimes it's even used to represent numerical data. But it's important. It explains the main points of the passage. To be or not to be. Life sucks, but the alternate might suck more. I like to repeat that because it makes so much sense. And this is what a paraphrasing. I mean, you don't want to write a full essay using those kind of words. You can even pick even a little bit more academically appropriate words to what you're writing. But the meaning is there. The definition, the clarification is in that particular paraphrasing of to be or not to be. There's 3 tips you take in paraphrasing: sentence structure, word forward, and synonyms. Sentence structure. You know that you have your noun, your subject, and your verbs, and your adjectives. And the way that you present that when you paraphrase them is extremely important. And I go back to the chickens before. The way they presented it, to be or not to be, if you take the first two words that it says, first three words, okay, and you will see that it ends in a comma and goes into the definition or the explanation of the second part, not to be. And that's where paraphrasing comes in. It's that sentence structure that you're using. You use a similar one, but it's the word forms, and that's where we get into word forms. What word forms are you using? Your adjectives, your adverbs, your gerunds. What is it that you're using? Remember when we edited before, where you had to introduce the present to past, you had to use your brackets in order to make sense of what you were working on. That's extremely important. And then of course you got your synonyms. Your synonyms are words that mean the same thing. And very easily you write a word, or you're reading something, you put it in your dictionary, boom, you're going to get it. If you're on Word, you click on synonyms, you're going to get 3 or 4 different words that you can use instead of that one, which is it's exactly what you're supposed to do. I am not going to go over these, but I am going to take about I'm going to leave it up there for about 1 minute each. I have 3 of these, which is part of your assignment. What I want you to paraphrase, I have 3 slides which have a statement, which have a quote, in which I want you to paraphrase in your own words. That's the first 3 parts of your assignments for this week. I'm going to leave this on for about 30 seconds. I'm not going to leave it on a minute, for about 30 seconds. Whenever you're playing it, you press pause and you look at it and you can write it down and then go paraphrase it. All right, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds on this, and then I have 3 more. We're going to go silent for about a minute and a half, so I can give you that time. This is quote number 2. And this is quote number 3. This is a long passage. I left it for number 3. It's a little bit longer, but do your best that you can do on it. And pause this when you get to write it down. Please put pause on your video, and it will hold together until you're able to write it down. Okay. I'm going to leave you with these words concerning paraphrasing. I put another small chart for you back up there again so you can see the differences between them. But I just wanted to read this to you. Using sources within your essay is a deceptively difficult process, as there are several steps to take to ensure that you're using sources in a way that gets the information across effectively and does so in a stylistically elegant way. When you want to integrate sources into an essay, you have three tools at your disposal: summary, paraphrase, and quotation. Each has its own distinct purpose and form. Please use these tools correctly to avoid plagiarism. And that's, I would like to leave you on that note this evening, that plagiarism is very prominent in schools, so please stay away from that. Use the techniques that I've been working with you so far to develop your own paragraphs, your own styles, what you want to say. So far, we have written very personal paragraphs about yourself, about your family, and so on and so forth. But now we're going to get into a more deeper type of writing in this ESL class. This is an intermediate and advanced class, so if you feel I'm going too flat, if you feel that I'm going too fast, please let me know, and I will try to help you out throughout the week. I can be reached at any time. It's important that you keep me advised of what you're doing. If you're not understanding something, I can send you more material. I can send you more references that will help you. And if we need to chat for about an hour, that wouldn't be a problem. We can stream, we can chat on the phone, so I can explain to you, if you're not understanding something in the class. I wanted to point out that I have a I wanted to point out that I had your work for the coming week, and I wanted to show you here that you have your lesson assignments. You back chapter 2 and chapter 3. Please make sure you have them. Again, I downloaded them at Word documents. Please respond on that format. If you're having a problem doing that, please let me know. I will sit down with you. It is a very simple process. It's downloading it, doing your work, saving it, and emailing it back to me. If you're having an issue with that, please let me know so I can help you out. Please don't fall behind on your assignments. It's a lot harder when you have to catch up. I want everyone to have a great evening this evening. Please enjoy. If you have any issues or problems or things that you need to accomplish, please get in contact with me, and you will benefit from all of this. And I will say to you, thank you. Have a great evening, and I will be speaking to you soon. Please have those assignments. Keep coming. Keep coming. You're doing very, very well. Have a good evening. Ciao.